Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another brand new episode of the Word of the Day podcast, where useful words are pleasantly explained. My name is Jamie Silva, I am your host, and I'm as happy as a clam to be back here behind the mic once again, pleasantly explaining another useful word to you all, and then introducing a brand new segment that we think you'll enjoy very much. Today's word is the adjective lackadaisical, which I would say means nonchalant, half-hearted, and inattentive, usually with respect to a task or action. So imagine someone is making dinner, and instead of cooking a legit dish comprised of several ingredients and maybe even from a recipe, they just stare into the fridge for a bit, yawn, pull out some leftover mac and cheese, pour some hot sauce on it, and call it a meal. This would constitute making dinner in a lackadaisical fashion, without much effort or care. Or you could say they made dinner lackadaisically. That's the adverb form, describing the way that someone does this or that action. Here's what the Google definition has to say for lackadaisical. Quote, lacking enthusiasm and determination, carelessly lazy, unquote. And Merriam-Webster adds, quote, lacking life, spirit, or zest, unquote. Harkening back to our last couple episodes on the Latin term bona fide, you would think of lackadaisical as not making a bona fide effort. So like where someone is just going through the motions and probably barely even putting on a pretense of caring about whatever they're up to. Hence, doing things lackadaisically is a recipe for mistakes, oversights, and inferior results. Now, why might someone be lackadaisical? The Google definition hints at laziness as a cause, which is fair, and certainly someone who's lackadaisical will likely appear lazy. But I think the word implies a deeper problem, one best captured by the following clip from the movie Office Space. And very mild language alert for this.
The thing is, Bob, it's not that I'm lazy. It's that I just don't care.
Don't care?
It's a problem of motivation, all right? Now, if I work my ass off and Initech ships a few extra units, I don't see another dime. So where's the motivation? And here's something else, Bob. I have 8 different bosses right now.
I beg your pardon?
8 bosses.
8?
8, Bob. So that means that when I make a mistake, I have 8 different people coming by to tell me about it. That's my only real motivation, is not to be hassled. That and the fear of losing my job. But you know, Bob, that'll only make someone work just hard enough not to get fired.
Right, so lackadaisical behavior often reflects a lack of motivation. That is, just barely enough to show up and do a passing imitation of someone making an effort, which counts for something, but only just. Next up is the etymology of lackadaisical, which I think is pretty fun. I'll quote here from an excellent etymology website, Worldwide Words. Quote, lackadaisical owes its origin to an old saying of regret or dismay, lackaday, which was a shortened form of alackaday. Alack dates back to medieval times and probably comes from a dialect word lack that is variously interpreted as failure, fault, reproach, disgrace, or shame. So alackaday originally meant shame or reproach to the day that it should have brought this misfortune upon me. But over time, the phrase weakened, until it became no more than a vapid and vacuous cry when some minor matter went awry. At some point in the 18th century, the form lackadaisy appeared, with lackadaisical coming along shortly afterwards, and describing somebody who regularly used the cry alackaday. At first, it meant that the person was feebly sentimental, and later it moved towards the idea of somebody who was affectedly languishing, and thence to someone merely lazy, unquote. Affectedly languishing is a great phrase, as is sentimentally woebegone, which is another definition I came across of this archaic sense of lackadaisical. Like, you can just imagine someone sprawled out on the couch, complaining to any who will listen that it's far too humid to go outside for a walk, or they must have had one too many chocolate-dipped macaroons at dinner and now are feeling quite indisposed, or some other petty complaint. Anyway, so to sum up, because some people overused that already melodramatic lament Alackaday, the exclamation evolved into an unflattering way to describe those same people. It would be as if we had an adjective today called can't even all, describing people who, in response to relatively small inconveniences or annoyances, routinely declare that they potentially literally can't even. One example I thought of for someone who lives up to this sentimentally woebegone description is Eeyore, the chronically gloomy donkey from A.A. Milne's Winnie the Pooh stories. It isn't just that Eeyore is forlorn, though he is. It's that he's so melodramatic about it. Not that he's the shouting or wailing type, no. He telegraphs his woes via sarcasm, passive aggression, and a carefully maintained outward apathy that masks a profound need lurking in everyone's heart, including, apparently, donkeys, the need to belong. To hear what I'm talking about, listen to this exchange between Eeyore and Winnie the Pooh. Quote, Eeyore, the old gray donkey, stood by the side of the stream and looked at himself in the water. Pathetic, he said. That's what it is. Pathetic. He turned and walked slowly down the stream for 20 yards, splashed across it, and walked slowly back on the other side. Then he looked at himself in the water again. As I thought, he said, no better from this side. But nobody minds. Nobody cares. Pathetic. That's what it is. There was a crackling in the bracken behind him, and out came Pooh. Good morning, Eeyore, said Pooh. Good morning, Pooh Bear, said Eeyore gloomily. If it is a good morning, he said. Which I doubt, said he. Why, what's the matter? Nothing, Pooh Bear, nothing. We can't all, and some of us don't. That's all there is to it. Can't all what? Said Pooh, rubbing his nose. Gaiety, song and dance. Here we go round the mulberry bush. You seem so sad, Eeyore. Sad? Why should I be sad? It's my birthday, the happiest day of the year. Your birthday? Said Pooh in great surprise. Of course it is. Can't you see? Look at all the presents I've had. Eeyore waved a foot from side to side. Look at the birthday cake, candles, and pink sugar. Pooh looked, first to the right and then to the left. Presents? Said Pooh. Birthday cake? Said Pooh. Where? Can't you see them? No, said Pooh. Neither can I, said Eeyore. Joke, he explained. Ha ha. Unquote. Well, wow, the Alack the Day vibes are just palpable here, as Eeyore languishes, positively wallows in prickly self-pity. Now, I should warn that the word has mostly moved on from this sense and towards, careless, unenthusiastic, and slipshod. But I don't think it's fully gone. Recall the Merriam-Webster definition of lacking life, spirit, or zest. That's at least in the same ballpark as sentimentally woebegone. So if you want to use it in this fashion, I think you may. Now, next, a friend of mine, Paige, who you've heard on the show before, most recently in our episode on Muse, she suggested another way to use lackadaisical that has much cheerier connotations. For her, the careless angle of the word's meaning might be better thought of as carefree. In that, sure, maybe you're not attending to a task as closely as you could be, but that's because it's fine to just take it easy once in a while. Everything doesn't have to be perfect, and trying to make it so can be a source of needless stress. If you wanted to spend an afternoon at the beach, instead of rushing around for a couple hours beforehand, getting a bunch of gear and food together, why not just grab some flip-flops and a hat and just go? It'll be fun anyway, right? Remember that Office Space line? It's not that I'm lazy, it's that I just don't care. Well, not caring, or at least not caring as much, can be very freeing. Arguably, it's a fresh, healthy perspective, one that prioritizes peace of mind over mindless so-called productivity, and letting go rather than holding yourself to unrealistically high standards. A person who makes lackadaisical fashion choices might not be the coolest dresser, but think how much time and angst they save by not bothering themselves about such things. That's the power of lackadaisical thinking. Now, I don't know how common this laid-back, it's all good man usage is, but even if it's pretty rare, I like it as just another way to think about the concept, one that considers it from the lackadaisical person's point of view, where maybe they have good, Zen-like reasons for acting that way. Okay, it's now time to get some examples of how to use lackadaisical in ordinary conversation or writing. Example number 1. Unlike the other stadium food vendors, who would shout their wares at the top of their lungs, then hustle up and down the steps to deliver the goods and whip out exact change, Gareth took a more lackadaisical approach to selling his peanuts. This consisted mainly of holding up a bag, scanning the crowd for eye contact, raising his eyebrows, and nodding slightly in the direction of the peanuts, as if to say, hey, they're not half bad. Example number 2. All right, botany class dismissed, said Mr. Douglas lackadaisically, checking his watch. For homework, I don't know, find some weird plants and draw pictures of them, I guess. Example number 3 comes from the book Robin Hood by J. Walter McSpadden. In this selection, which I've lightly edited for conciseness, we'll find the old-fashioned, alack the day, who cares anyway, I'm depressed and I don't care who knows it sense of lackadaisical. We pick up the scene when some of Robin Hood's merry men are trotting down a path together. Quote, they espied a knight riding by in a very forlorn and careless manner. Little John came up to the knight and begged him to accept the hospitality of the forest. My master expects you to dine with him today, quoth he. Seeing the other 2 outlaws approaching, the knight shrugged his shoulders and replied indifferently, 'Tis clear that your invitation is too urgent to admit of refusal, quoth he, and I go with you right willingly, my friends. My purpose was to have dined today at Blythe or Doncaster, but nothing matters greatly. So, in the same lackadaisical fashion which had marked all his actions that day, the knight allowed his horse to be led to the rendezvous in the greenwood. Unquote. And finally, example number 4 comes from an article in the New York Review of Books entitled Poets and Money by Charles Simic. Quote, most poems are short. They give the impression that it took no time to write them. 10 minutes tops. To write a 600-page novel takes years. You go and work at your desk every day, the way a miner goes to his mine, and you feel as drained afterwards. Of course, that kind of work should be amply rewarded. A poet, meanwhile, stands at the window watching the rain fall, or looks at a lock of hair of his old sweetheart, scribbles down something on a piece of paper, and is through for the day. The most outrageous thing about poetry is that poems composed in such a lackadaisical manner end up in anthologies that your kids are supposed to study in school. Not only that, but they may fall in love with them, memorize them, and try to imitate them. Unquote. Okay, that is all for the examples, but that is not all for today's show. As promised, we have a brand new segment to introduce, Word Games. These are simple, require no pen or paper or other accoutrements, and are a perfect family and friends activity, as long as your family and friends are linguistically nerdy enough to like this sort of thing. These games are great to play on a road trip or maybe around a campfire, or just by yourself for fun or a little mental exercise, or so that the next time you play in a group, you'll crush everybody. I'll start sprinkling these games across a few episodes, but the first one I'll feature is called Tom Swifties. This is a form of wordplay inspired by a series of kids' adventure books published in the early 20th century and featuring the hero Tom Swift. Apparently, for dialogue, the authors of these books, and there were several, disliked the simple he or she said way of marking speech. No, they wanted fancier words like proclaimed or declared or remarked, or especially an adverb describing the way the characters said whatever it was, like happily, angrily, sternly, etc. The game, then, consists in connecting whatever is said to the way it was said, usually by way of an aptly chosen adverb. The result is a sort of pun, with all the delight and cringes pertaining thereto. Here are a few examples. I need a pencil sharpener, Tom said bluntly. Right, because, his pencil was dull, aka blunt. As Eeyore would say, joke. Ha ha. Okay, here's another one. I have no flowers, Tom said lackadaisically. Lackadaisically, get it? Because he lacks daisies, a type of flower. Hilarious. Okay, here's just a few more, which I won't explain because I want you to have the fun of sorting them out, and ask your friends where the pun is if you're not sure. Here we go. Pass me the shellfish, Tom said crabbily. I only have diamonds, spades, and clubs in my hand, Tom said heartlessly. I love hot dog toppings, Tom said with relish. This one doesn't use an adverb, you'll notice, but the principle is the same. Man, I've dropped my toothpaste, Tom said, crestfallen. I'd like my money back and then some, said Tom with interest. If you want me, I shall be in the attic, Tom said loftily. And finally, sorry, I couldn't remember what to buy at the store, Tom said listlessly. There you have it. As far as turning it into a game, it's simple. Just try to think of some more Tom Swifties, either on your own or in a group. There's a huge number of ways to describe how someone says something, especially if you're creative about it, so you may find it easier than you think. Or, if you're feeling lazy, you could just look up lists of Tom Swifties online. They're fun to read and figure out. Alrighty then, that'll do it for us. That'll do it for today's program, the host said, showily. We hope you liked it, as we were not lackadaisical in putting it together, but rather did so with the utmost care and attention. On behalf of everyone here at the program, thank you very much for listening. Please do tune in again next time, and in the meanwhile, as always, have a great